jagata vishayam kusuma pariritya sada chararam buduhamrita shanti sudha eva bringamano bhavarogaharam pranamami param janani jagata eva bringamano bhavarogaharam pranamami param janani jagata.
ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये भारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतस्तुन्नन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः. So we are continuing discussion on the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So we remember where we stand. At the end of the text of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna makes a very interesting statement. In fact, that is the last verse of the Gita. The verse is, Yatra yogeshwar Krishno yatra partho dhanurdharaha tatra sri vijayo bhutihi dhruva nitihi madirmama. This is the verse. It's a very famous verse. Wherever these two ideals are present, there will be victory, there will be a stable, a permanent order, social, economic, legal order, and also there will be prosperity. So these three predictions, wherever Arjuna, who represents action, and Krishna, who represents contemplation. So wherever you find these two ideals are present, action, energy, efficiency, enthusiasm on the one hand, and then contemplation, spiritual values. Where these two ideals are present, there will be victory, there will be prosperity, success, there will be justice, there will be stability in society and individual life. This is the conclusion of the Gita. So that's what we are going to discuss in this third chapter. The third chapter begins with a question from Arjuna. Jayasi che karmanaste mada buddhir janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojiyasi keshava. Vyamisrena eva vakyena buddhi mohayasiva me tad ekam vada nischitya yena sreyokam apnuyat. Two verses. So I already explained this, but it's very important to discuss this again. Arjuna was facing a conflict. Which is better and which is more important, which is more relevant, useful in our life? Action or contemplation? Action, efficiency, success, prosperity, all these so-called secular values on the one hand, and spiritual values, contemplation. Which is better? And somehow a misunderstanding entered Arjuna's mind. And that's a very serious misunderstanding. Listening to the earlier instructions, Arjuna came to a wrong conclusion due to his own ignorance, his own confusion, that it is much better and much superior, much more preferable, much more desirable to remain in a state of perfect contemplation, mental stability. No action, nothing. Is it really possible for us to completely ignore, completely avoid any kind of physical activity? This third chapter tells you that it is not only impossible to remain inactive, but it is not advisable and it is even dangerous to try to remain inactive. That's a very important, it is even dangerous. Why it is dangerous? If we do not divert our mind and our senses towards some positive channels, then they will have a natural tendency to turn to very, very dangerous, very harmful channels. We can very easily find out if we try to practice silence. If our mind is, let's say, immersed in listening to devotional music, reading a very wonderful book, listening to some great ideas, then our mind becomes maybe calm and quiet and stable and steady. And when we are extremely active physically, then also our mind may not be distracted much, but because the mind is completely focused on the work we are doing. But suppose we try to remain physically inactive, thinking that we will also be able to remain mentally inactive when we become physically inactive, we find our mind becomes much more agitated, mind becomes much more violent, much more disturbed. Which shows that if we do not make an effort a positive effort to divert our mind into some creative channels, some creative activity, it will be harmful. That's why, first of all, psychologically it is impossible for us to remain actually inactive at a mental level. For a beginner. So, that's why Lord Krishna says it is impossible and it is dangerous and it is harmful to try to practice physical and psychological silence and inactivity all the time. It is not only impossible. Nahi kasik kshanamabi jadu tishtati akarma krida. Those who are interested in the verse can keep in mind this one. The fifth verse, Lord Krishna says, even if you try to remain mentally inactive, you won't be able to do that. Mind will find out its own channels, its own focus. So before the mind actually finds out its own areas of interest, it's better to present before the mind some creative activity. That's very, very important. So if there is anything that can be and should be avoided, it is selfishness. It is the tendency of the mind to get distracted into unhealthy channels. That's the only thing to be avoided, not action. Activity cannot be and should not be avoided. Because action is necessary for us to refine our ego, to refine our mind, to purify our mind, to sublimate our tastes and temperaments and natural tendencies should be sublimated. Sublimation is a natural first step in spiritual life. Mind can be turned into a friend by activity. If we go on doing some good actions, find mind slowly becomes our friend. If mind is not given any deliberate sense of purpose, direction, then mind will find out its own activity, and that would be dangerous. So this is the central teaching of the third chapter. So we have to remember these verses. These verses are all interrelated. Now, Arjuna's misunderstanding was that he thought being a yogi means, being a spiritually enlightened person means to remain physically inactive. So as I mentioned, there is a Sanskrit sloka which says, a yogi here means a spiritually enlightened person. He eats to live, and the opposite of yogi is a bhogi, the one who just wants to enjoy life. He lives to eat. So the person with a higher purpose in life, he eats to live. Those who do not have any purpose in life, he lives to eat. So practically putting one word, the other side is, that's what it means. Now, another very important point to remember is, philosophy has no feet, no hands. Philosophy cannot walk. It cannot eat food. You may be, perhaps sometimes when we try to read a great book, we listen to some great idea, suddenly we try to compel ourselves into thinking that is our ideal, we have identified with that ideal. So now we have become a wonderful spiritual person because we are interested, at least for some time, in spiritual subjects. So we have become a spiritual person. It doesn't happen that way, because spirituality and philosophy do not walk, do not do things with their hands. They need senses of action, senses of perception, and also mind. It is through mind, through our actions, that we actually express spirituality or spiritual enlightenment. So that's why Lord Krishna makes it again and again, he makes it clear that it is impossible for one to be inactive. Then how to be proper, how to be active in the right sense of the word, means how to be properly active. So Gita has presented a very wonderful ideal. We discussed this in the second chapter. We discussed Swadharma. That's very, very important, Swadharma. If you understand Swadharma, you find most of our anxieties, worries and problems and internal conflicts and frictions will disappear if you understand Swadharma. Swadharma has got many other words: Niyatam karma, Sahajam karma, Swabhava niyatam karma. All these are different expressions indicating the same. Our own natural way of work, our own natural areas of activity that we feel in perfect harmony with. When we do certain things to a sense of our own inner contentment, we'll be able to sleep much better that day. And again, we feel a kind of inner fulfillment. When a doctor, an engineer, or an artist, whatever may be the profession we are practicing, when we do something which is part of our natural job, which we know we are trained for that job, and again, that's a job that we are, by our own temperament, born into. Sahajam karma means a karma they are born with. Subhavaniyadam karma means a karma, a way of activity that is very much in tune with our own natural inborn tendencies. When we do something that is not in tune with our own natural inborn tendencies, we feel a conflict, a disharmony. And that actually leads to anxiety, worry, and so on. But then we don't always get the work we want. So very often we have to interpret what we are doing to be also dharma. And Gita also makes a very wonderful job of bringing this harmony. Whatever we are doing, it may not be a work for which we are best qualified. It may not be a work that we are born with, for which we are professionally trained very often. But if we have a mind, a healthy approach to work, then we can bring in this Swadharma ideal into whatever work we are doing. And then we feel a kind of inner contentment. Then it becomes a direct path to our own spiritual evolution, really speaking. So that means every action can be turned into a positive advantage, into our own advantage. So dharma ideal becomes a machine that generates spiritual energy. And spiritual energy, how does it express in our life? Inner contentment. Something we do and we feel a deep-rooted inner contentment. That's the only visible, discernible expression of spiritual energy. So it is called Swadharma. So the solution that Lord Krishna presents before us, do whatever you are doing as Swadharma. And that's why he gives this strong warning again and again, never, never, never try to pretend to be inactive. Never, never try to pretend that you have gone beyond action. Nobody goes beyond action. Physical action we can transcend. But psychological action, mental action, we cannot transcend. And that's why he uses strong language, a person who pretends to have transcended action. Doing nothing, pretending to be inactive, but mentally always thinking about what a wonderful thing I could have had if I could achieve that. Hiding this desire, but not willing to put up an effort, an honest day's work to realize this expectation or dream. Such a person is a hypocrite. Karmendriyani samyamya. He aste manasasmaran. Indriyarthan vimudhatma mithyacharaha sauchyate. So physically we have restrained our senses of action. Senses of action we can withdraw. You can keep quiet and sit an easy chair. You can sit on a chair. You are not working with your feet. You are not walking. You are not running. That's possible. You are not eating anything. You are not spelling anything. That's possible. But then we pretend to be inactive, not only at the physical level, at the mental level also. It is a serious misunderstanding, and a person with that misunderstanding is called hypocrite. This is hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is a serious problem, It permanently blocks our all possible channels for growth. That's one problem of hypocrisy. When we practice something, or rather when we pretend to practice something that we cannot and we do not practice, what happens? Our ability to reach a point where we can practice that ideal is blocked. That's what happens. So the mithyachara means wrong activity, means when we try to pretend to have reached a high level of spiritual progress without really reaching there. Total contemplation without any activity, mind always in a state of contemplation. We have not reached there, but we pretend to have reached there. That pretension will permanently prevent our scope to reach that level. So that's why Lord Krishna is vimudhatma. He is self-deluded. Visheshana means he has comprehensive delusion. That's what it means. He is ignorant in a very comprehensive way. Thorough delusion. So this is the picture of a hypocrite, a pretender. The next verse, 7th verse, these verses are interrelated. Lord Krishna gives a picture of a real yogi, a real spiritual man. Yastu indriyani manasa niyamya arabhate Arjuna karmendriye karma yogam asakta sa visishyati. So who is a yogi? So he says, in manasa indriyani samyamya, means mentally he has restrained his senses, but not physically. You may be working 24 hours with a definite purpose. You have a deadline to meet. You have an important target to attain. You have to maybe increase the profit of the company for which you are working. Other shareholders, stockholders will protest. You may lose your job also. So you have to work hard with a strong motive, with a definite purpose. All this you have to do. But mind is not so much worried. Mind is not being dragged by these compulsions, these activities. Such a person is a yogi. So you can see the picture. A big executive, a big man of business who has to work hard day and night to meet a deadline, very active. He can be a yogi, and a person who is sitting in an easy chair, closing his eyes, who is always dreaming of some wonderful worldly desires, he can be the opposite of a yogi. He can be a pretender. So you can see the opposing pictures, the contrasting pictures. You can be a yogi when you are in the workplace. And you may be a pretender, spiritual. In the spiritual sense, you could be a pretender if you are sitting under a tree in a forest. You can be a pretender. If you are not contemplating on something higher, your mind is not fully established. But physically you are inactive. You can be a pretender, sitting under a tree in a forest. And you can be a great spiritual man when you're working, when you're running a big company. So the yastu indriyani manasa niyamya arabhate Arjuna karmendriye karma yogam asaktasya visishyate. That person believes that it is his swadharma, it is his duty to work hard, to make profit for the company, to give employment to people, and is working very hard. And that person can be a spiritually enlightened person. These are very, very interesting, contrasting pictures. In fact, that's why in the 2nd chapter, Lord Krishna made it very clear. Real yoga is samatvam yoga uchyate. That's the definition that comes in the 2nd chapter. Yoga here means a state of spiritual enlightenment. That's the meaning of yoga here. So what it means is samatvam means a perfect equanimity of mind, a perfect state in which mind is always serene, happy, and with an equilibrium in your approach to life, activity, and everything towards others also. Such a person is a yogi. Therefore, niyadam kuru karmatvam. Therefore, do your work. Karmajyayo hi akarmanaha. Akarmanaha karmajyaya means action is always better than inaction. Inaction here, you have to remember, inaction means a person, a spiritual seeker who tries to physically avoid his duties and responsibilities, thinking that by avoiding his duty, he can actually transcend duty. He can go beyond the concept of duty and obligations. And he can avoid all the problems associated with duty, obligations, and responsibilities. I mean, he doesn't do anything. So by imposing upon himself a kind of physical inaction, he can avoid the problems of action. So because it is against our true nature and it blocks our further spiritual growth, Lord Krishna says, such inaction, inactivity out of laziness and delusion is much worse than action with a definite purpose. So that is So if you just draw a picture, the evolution of the concept of duty and karma, you can see that, well, suppose you are working hard with a definite purpose and motive. Well, Gita will tell you, very good, you don't give up this enthusiasm. Keep it up. But remember, this enthusiasm is fine, but it may not give you the whole of spiritual benefit. With this enthusiasm, with this activity, with this efficiency, you should also add a contemplative, a spiritual element. How do we add the spiritual element? That, well, actions by themselves are neither good nor bad. They are not harmful. And they are not particularly good or bad. The way we identify with what we do, that's what really makes the difference. So, even while working very hard all the time, if we can keep our mind serene and contemplative, that will be much better than just plunging headlong into work without any spiritual purpose. That is Lord Krishna's advice. But if somebody is keeping quiet, doing nothing, wasting his time, and still not free from desires, Lord Krishna will tell such a person, you go and work on at least 15 hours every day. First, you should give up this laziness, inertia, lethargy, and become active. And after becoming active, you should be able to combine action and contemplation. And once we combine action and contemplation, becomes karma yoga, then every action becomes an active help in our spiritual progress. So, karmanya karmaya pasyet akarmani cha karmayaka sabuddhiman manisheshu sayukta krishna karma krit. We are going to study this in the coming days. The statement is this, karmani akarmaya pasyet. The highest spiritual person will be able to see inaction in action and action in inaction. If you read the verse and just simple translation, it could be misleading. Shankaracharya has written a long commentary on this. How do we see inaction in action and action in inaction? So you're working very hard all the time. Still you feel, well, my body is working, my senses are working, my mind is working. But the real me, the real I, is far beyond body, mind and intellect. It is something that transcends all this. The real I is not doing anything. But my work, my senses are working. Mind is working. I gave this example some time back. In fact, there is a secret of great karma yogis. You may have seen, if you read the life of great spiritual personalities, you find how much work. Maybe one of the finest examples we can give the builder of this temple. His name was Swami Tattwamayananda. I cannot give a better example of an ideal karma yogi than the Swami who built the very place where we are sitting. You know, if you see his picture just before he came to this country, it will be very interesting. He had a long beard, black beard, wearing some rags, wandering in the Himalayas, going to Tibet, all these places. This was in the beginning of the 20th century. And they didn't have any food, in fact. So they had to beg their food at this, like the medieval Christian friars. They went from place to place, begging food, with a beard, wearing some rags. That was what he was doing, just a few months before he came to this country. He was a well-educated person, of course, that you will find later. But that he was a typical monk, almost like the Franciscan or Dominican friars of medieval times. And then Vivekananda told him, instructed him to come to San Francisco. That was in the year 1902. Swami Vivekananda passed away in the July month of 1902. So this must have happened in these months, May, June, these months. This must have happened. Swami Vivekananda was prepared, who was thinking of sending somebody to San Francisco, and this Swami was actually delegated by Vivekananda to come to San Francisco. And he reached here maybe I think January, the beginning of January 1903. It must have taken several weeks to cross the ocean. He came by ship. And so he reached here in 1903. And he passed away in 1915. So that must be roughly around 13 years. And you know what all he did within 30 years? There was no temple here. There was no Vedanta society in San Francisco. There was a place where a gentleman, a devotee, used to host Swami Vivekananda when he visited this part of the country, who gave lectures there. But the Swami, his name is Swami Tattwamayananda. And in 13 years, less than 13 years, he built this temple. He founded the Vedanta Society. Vivekananda founded in 1900, but the society that we find today is actually his creation. He started a magazine, a printing press. He started a Concord settlement of several miles away from here. He preached all over this city and trained many monks and some nuns across the street. That is where they were housed. And all within less than 13 years. Now, if you read his life, written by an American author, her name is Mary Louise Burke, a brilliant writer. She wrote about him. You find he never felt that he was doing anything. I tell you, if he have ever thought, tomorrow I have to go there, I have to found a Vedanta society, I have to start a press, then he won't be able to do that. You'll be tired, you'll be sitting, lying down somewhere. That means even physically it is possible. I mean, we are not talking about some mythological figures, Buddha. We are talking about somebody who lived just more than a century before us. So this is Swami Tattwamayananda. So how could they do that? And this is just one of the many examples. Because when they were working, they never thought, I have done so much today and I have to do so much tomorrow. No. Once you associate yourself with the physical body, whatever you do, if you associate with your physical body and mind, then you will have no time, you have time only to take rest. So this is just a living example. He worked like as if he was a well-trained CEO. Well-trained CEOs won't be able to do that, because well-trained CEOs won't be able to inspire another person. And this Swami inspired monks and nuns and devotees who gave up everything, married men and women, and also unmarried youngsters, give up everything, and in a totally, we are talking about 1903, mind you. And they listened to this alien person who came from a different country and who spoke about a different tradition, different philosophy of life, and there was something very wonderful about this. Well-trained CEOs won't be able to do this work, because inspiration comes from another source. It's a gift from God. It is not gift from a university. The ability to inspire. It's just like you need a live candle. Then only somebody else can light the candle from your candle. So this is Karma Yoga. I'll give you an example. So that's why yastu indriyani manasa niyamya arabhade Arjuna. Mind is given to God. or any higher spiritual ideal, and body and mind is working, but it is given to somebody else higher than mind, and you work with your mind and intellect and body, so you are not affected by it. Because I'm different, I transcend, I'm distinct from this body-mind complex. So Lord Krishna says, therefore do your work. So in the 9th verse, there is an interesting statement, those are good. Yajnatha karmanaha anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma gaundeya mukta sangha samachara. There is one word, yajna. Yajna is a very interesting word in Sanskrit language. Yajna has two fundamental meanings. They are somewhat different. One meaning of yajna is some ancient Vedic rituals. There are altogether 17 Vedic rituals. The one is Saptahavir Yajna and Soma Yajna. Means 14 different types of ancient Vedic rituals practiced by the sages of India in ancient times. It's a ritual that those rituals could include for the harmony of the world, for the harmony of creation, maybe for the peace in the world. All these may be purposes, or maybe for your own material benefit, long life, wealth, well-being of your relatives. All these, maybe you are praying to different gods and goddesses. They believe in a kind of polytheism. So this is one meaning of yajna, which is just so devadodeshena dravyasya tyagaha yajnaha is one definition. Devadodeshena dravyasya tyagaha yajnaha. You sacrifice something for pleasing gods and goddesses. This is a very, very, very earthly meaning. The meaning in which the word yajna is used here is different. Yajna vai sreshtatamam karma. This is another definition. Ikamdi Katyayana's commentary. Yajna vai sreshtatamam karma. Any noble activity is yajna. Any noble activity. So what do we mean by a noble activity? Any action we do with a sense of sanctity and dedication for the good of others, not for our own selfish, not for the fulfillment of our own selfish desires, for the good of others. Any such action, maybe you are eating food, you are working, you're walking, you're working in the factory, working in the hospital, working elsewhere, doing your secular activities, you're bringing a spiritual element into that. That is yajna. So if you are eating food, it can be yajna. You know the mantra we utter every day. Brahmarpanam brahmagavir brahmakno brahmanahudam brahmaiva tena gandavyam brahmakarma samadhina. This is what we do. It's called brahma yajna, where there is a graphic symbolic description of yajna as practiced in all our activities, especially in food. So what you eat, what you digest, the way you digest, its benefit to our body and mind, all these are yajna. So normally, those of you who have seen our homas, our Vedic rituals we practice. On January 1st, we do here in our temple, new temple. We light a fire. Then we offer ahutis. Anything that you offer in the fire is called ahuti. So the fire, the flame has a significance. In the Vedic, according to Vedic tradition, according to the teachings of the ancient Vedic sages, the flame is the messenger who takes your offering to different deities. This is believed among ancient Indian Aryan sages. So Agni is a deity. Agni itself is the vehicle, the one who takes all your offerings to different deities. So you utter some mantras and offer in the blazing fire. This is homa. It's called homa, what you call fire sacrifice. Now, we do that every year on January 1st in the new temple. Now, the whole thing is graphically given a symbolic representation, where the fire, Brahmarpanam, what we offer, that is yagna, that is Brahman, the all-pervading divine reality. And the way of offering, the act of offering, the fire on which the flame, on which you are putting offering, and the one who is offering, and the one who is the beneficiary of this ritual, and the one who supervises this ritual. All these are different expressions of the same all-pervading, transcendental, immanent, divine, spiritual reality, divine spark. It's called Brahman. So, all activity, all life, every secular activity becomes a spiritual activity. That is called yagna. So, that such an activity becomes yagna. So, the creation, the sustenance of the whole universe is portrayed as a yagna in the coming verses. Oceans are filled with water by rains. And oceans, or rivers rather, rivers and streams are filled with water by rains. So when it rains, the rivers and streams are filled with water. These rivers empty their waters into the ocean. And the sun absorbs this water from the ocean and becomes cloud. And the cloud again comes back again in the form of rains. And rains sustains human life by helping us to have a good crop, food grains, so we eat food. So the whole creation and sustenance, the entire cyclic phenomenon, sustenance of the universe, human life, everything is a silent, invisible yagna that is going on. So we will discuss that in the coming verses. Now here in the 9th verse, Lord Krishna says, any activity, karmanaha anyatra, yajnatha karmanaha anyatra, any activity that you do other than as yajna, it becomes a bondage. So whatever you do that as a yajna. So yajna, again, to be simple, yajna is nothing but any activity in which we engage ourselves, which we do with a sense of sanctity and sacredness, not for fulfilling any of our own selfish desires, but for the good of others. So it becomes a blessing to others, and it becomes a help in our own spiritual evolution, spiritual life. Any such activity is yajna. So yajna is not just a Vedic ritual in the broader sense of the term. In that broader sense, the word yajna is used in this verse. So Lord Krishna says, yajnathar karmanaha anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma gondeya mukta sangha samachara. So if you do anything in this world other than yajna, it becomes a bondage. You can easily imagine. Even if you do something that we like, even we are engaged in an activity that we actually enjoy doing, after some time, the result of that activity may not be so very happy. It can be painful very often. No action can be perfect or complete in itself. Every action produces some good and a lot of bad unpleasantness also. That is the very nature of activity. Even if you do your best to somebody, for somebody, maybe with the best intentions you may do something for a person, that person may not respond to your action with the same mind. he may interpret your noblest, your purest intentions from his or her perspective. That means there is something wrong with even the best or noblest of our activity. And then we become worried when our action doesn't produce the expected response. So it's a fact. That means such an action is not complete in itself. It becomes complete in any way in itself only when it produces the expected result and it is happy and pleasant for everyone. It never really happens. You can do something with the best of intentions for the good of everyone, but there may be people who may interpret that noblest activity. You see, everyone doesn't love a Christ or a Buddha or a Gandhi, you can see. They have more enemies than most of us. We are far better, we are much more fortunate than somebody like Christ or Buddha. After all, you won't be able to exchange your place with Christ. Somebody places a huge cross, wooden cross on your shoulders, and you are asked to drag that wooden cross across the streets of Jerusalem under burning sun with a handful of Roman soldiers with intimidating expressions on their face, with the Pharisees and Sadducees. That's not a preposition that you enjoyed experiencing. No. Buddha, and he himself had a very unfortunate. Gandhi, Martin Luther, would you like to exchange your place with Martin Luther? No. But they were all good men, did good things only. Lincoln, you may not like to exchange places with them. That means even the best of persons, the best of activities will have some repercussions which may contradict the simple logic. But how do we go about doing good things that may be good for everyone without expecting anything in return, without any expectation for ourselves? And then it becomes yagna. And Lord Krishna says, if you do anything otherwise, not as yagna, but otherwise, you are doomed, you are heading for disaster. That's exactly the word he uses, Lokoyam karma bandhanaha. The karma, that good action with all the best intentions, can be a chain that binds you. Maybe the chain may be made of solid gold, but still the experience may not be less unpleasant than if the chain was made of steel. So that's why Lord Krishna says, live your life, do whatever you do as yajna. That's the meaning of the 9th verse, yajnathar karmanaha anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. Any kind of activity done otherwise can lead to bondage. Therefore, tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Therefore, be free from all entanglements or obsessions, attachments, unhealthy attachments, and do your best. It's a great philosophy of life is portrayed here in the 9th verse. So we'll have interaction now, and then we will. So we have about 10 minutes, I suppose. You are your own opinions of these great ideas. How do they work in our own times?
Swamiji. Yeah. Swamiji, you mentioned this idea of boga in opposition to yoga. Yeah. Are they diametrically opposed, or is there a way to synthesize boga with yoga? Or do you have to choose one or another at some point?
Oh, actually you can combine both. Bhoga by itself, the word has got an unhealthy, undesirable connotation. Even the most ordinary of your secular activities done with a definite purpose can be done without associating it with the bhoga idea, really speaking. Once you understand that it's not yours, it is not the whole of human life, and it's not the whole of human aspirations, It's only just part of it. Once you bringing that awareness, then you can practice bhoga through tyaga. That's what Ishavasya Upanishad tells you. Tena tyaktena vunjithaga ma kridakasya suddhanam. If you look upon everything as an expression of one divine reality, then you don't just go to a forest and stay there. You continue living in this world, continuing the same activity in which you were engaged earlier. But your whole attitude, philosophy of life changes. Well, I have to do this, but this is the whole of it. Once you bring in this idea, well, this is not the whole picture of human life and human aspirations, then it's no more bhoga. Then you are bringing a tyaga element in it, the spiritual element. You understand its transient nature, its perishable nature. Even the most wonderful things that you may acquire may one day disappear. Once you bringing that awareness, while going through that experience, whatever may be, you have made a lot of money. Even while making money, you should think, well, money is not the whole of human aspirations. Then you are bringing the limitation of it. So that brings in an element of tyaga, renunciation of it. So enjoyment is possible through renunciation. Renunciation of attachment, renunciation of obsessive attachment. Yeah.
Thank you. Swamiji, this is actually a question in some ways more because people constantly ask me this sort of question, and I don't know how to quite answer it. In the Gita, it says Sri Bhagavan Vacha. So Krishna is referred to as Bhagavan. We also use the word avatar, things like this. In the Western traditions, there's more of a concept of someone being a prophet or a messenger, and I think many people are want to put Krishna in the same category as a prophet or a messenger. But there's a couple of different terms that are being used, and I guess I'm not quite clear. I don't really know how to answer who is the speaker, who is the author of the Gita, and how Krishna would be compared to somebody who's written a commentary on it, for example, like Shankara or Abhinavagupta or Swami Vivekananda. How would we distinguish sort of what they're saying about the Gita versus what he himself said?
Yeah. In the context of Abrahamic religious tradition, in the revelations, and God sends a representative, God sends his son, God sends one of his messengers with his message, Moses or Jesus, like that, different messengers, different prophets, sometimes God's child. So that is the way in which this idea of an intermediary between God and the humanity developed in the context of Abrahamic tradition. That may have something to do with the cultural aspects of the people among whom these religions originated. In Indian context, what happened, so Bhagavan is used in the sense as somebody who's endowed with 6 important characteristics. So Bhagavan is used, Bhagavan Shankaracharya is used, Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna is used, depending upon different faith systems in their own groups, and it's common. So Bhaga is a great spiritual characteristic. So Aishwarya Samagrasya. So great effulgence, prosperity, the ability to answer your prayers. Then great power, and then great knowledge, great renunciation, and great reputation. So all these qualities, when they combine in a single individual, that person can be called as somebody who is endowed with Bhaga. So Bhaga means Aishwarya, Virya, Yasha, Sri, Tyaga, renunciation, jnana. That means, it could mean great prosperity, great reputation, great name, great power, great knowledge, great renunciation. So all these superlative qualities that we can think of, it's a kind of anthropomorphic approach to grandeur, superlative greatness that you can conceive of. When these 6 qualities combined in a single person, that person is called Bhagavan, somebody who is endowed with 6 bhagas. So, the word Bhagavan is used in the context of many great spiritual leaders. In India, they have written their translated Bible into Sanskrit. They have written Bhagavan Christu. That's how they look upon. So that's the Hindu approach, Hindu way of interpreting a great spiritual teacher, maybe Bhagavan Christ, like that. Bhagavan Buddha. Of course, he was born in Indian context. Of course. So that's how things are seen. Maybe from a Christian, maybe from a Semitic context, Sri Ramakrishna may be looked upon as a prophet, maybe a messenger of God. That's how different cultures portrayed great outstanding spiritual teachers born in different traditions. So this is one interpretation of Bhagavan. Another second important definition of Bhagavan is that in the context of Lord Krishna, Bhagavad Purana says, a spiritual teacher, an outstanding spiritual personality, who can see in a single dimension the past, present and future of creation, is endued with superlative wisdom. Such a person also can be called Bhagavan. So the ability to look beyond past, present and future. The one who can see everything in single line. We can't see the past and we can't see the future. We can see only the present. But a Bhagavan can see the past, present and future. That's why in the mythological stories you find suddenly a divine person appears and he tells somebody who prays, oh, in the past you have this, or in the future you will have this, like that. Because the line of demarcation between the past and present and between the present and future disappears for them. They see everything as okay. This faculty is a special characteristic of those who are endowed with these great qualities. So this is the meaning of Bhagavan. So the simplest explanation will be, it is a way of looking at great spiritual personalities in different cultures. Okay, thank you.
This brings up the reality of 2 historical figures.
Yeah.
With the Buddha in the East, living to be 80, being...
Buddha.
Yeah. Buddha as a personality.
Yeah.
As opposed to Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
The Buddha lived to be about 80. And he gave the word...
Buddha? Can you repeat once more?
The Buddha lived to be 80 years old, and he had teachings, which he left humanity.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Jesus Christ, he was a good man as well, but he ended up on the cross suffering.
Yeah.
So what is the Vedantic point of view of these 2 men?
Yeah, I think it has something to do with, again, the cultural factors involved, So, in Indian context, there are not many, maybe perhaps there is no instance of a great spiritual person dying, meeting a miserable end. In fact, Lord Krishna also died of an arrow, but Lord, he saw the hunter shooting the arrow, and Bhagavad Purana says he just blessed him. But the hunter didn't see. The hunter mistook Lord Krishna's feet as a part of a deer or something. The hunter was looking for his food, and he he mistook Lord Krishna's feet as part of a deer, an animal. And he shot an arrow. But Lord Krishna, with a smile, he blessed him. And that's how Krishna's life came to an end. I think it has something to do with which we don't really discuss. But there are certain factors, in Indian context, a spiritual person was not persecuted for being different or for holding a different approach, different view. Even Swami Vivekananda had to face opposition when he went back to India. He was not even allowed to enter the temple. After visiting Western country, he crossed the ocean. That was considered to be taboo, in fact. The early Indians were traveling all over the world. They were navigators. These in Java, Sumatra, Bali, Indonesia, Malaysia, the whole of Far East, practically part of Indian cultural empire. In Angkor Wat temple in Cambodia was built by Indian emperors in the 7th century AD. So they did cross the ocean. But many of these superstitions prevailed in Indian society in 19th century. So Vivekananda was not even allowed to enter the temple where he was. He was visiting, in fact, we have visited so many times earlier. So these kinds of superstitions did exist in India, but there was no physical persecution of the kind that prevailed in the Semitic traditions. I think that explains part of the question. Okay. Yeah, okay. So thank you. So we had a wonderful explanation. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu.